Yes, the genius in each thing. Good point and legitimate approach, but it does not play out in our case. Nerds of Pine Hill mythology is no place for the sea being daughter of Atlas, or an island being daughter of Atlas. But I never did this. It was always only about the mere possibility. They did not know of academic categories such as likelihood and possibility. Though this cannot serve at all as proof and stays uncertain, it is not unlikely at the same time. And the presented approach, besides its speculative character, remains incomplete, of course.
As muscular and man also begin with a consonant M, and muscular is analogous with man, gender speaking, since a man is made to be stronger than the feminine.
Of this we can be sure, but of what you lingo experts are arguing about, I'm not certain. For sure, you were arguing about castles in the sky. The Etruscans came to represent evolved in Italy much later than 1200 BC. My current working hypothesis is that a speaking group lived in Italy and were part of the larger sea trading community, and that there was a later migration from Turkey. It's a theory, and concerning my Sicily hypothesis, I do not wait until some others make them up. I work on it for years. When I talk of a hypothesis, that is what I'm saying. Concerning the transcription of Far-Outian names into Nerds of Pine Hill names, we have to wait indeed until some experts take up the problem. But this is only part of the problem.
Yet again, we do not have to wait in order to find a transcription of Italos, at least possibly. He has serious problems with differentiation and nuance.
This may be the reason why he has radical political views. He's white supremacist, or did I get that wrong?
As I told you, you don't belong with the skeptics, and you're not welcome with the entomologists.
In your words, you outsmart yourself, because you argue from both sides of the story. You use sources to make your arguments, which then looked at carefully, and in full, those same stories contradict and refute you fully. In other words, you outsmart yourself because you argue from both sides of the story. You have no reason or rhyme to your silly claims and propositions. You could become prolific in 50 more languages, and you would still be an educational idiot. You do not know how to reason, nor do you possess self-honesty and modesty, although modesty would not be a good goal for a needy man like you.
But making you see these faults and errors of yours is like trying to tell a mule to stop wasting his time and energy kicking at the flies pestering him, as it is futile. You criticize your colleagues on their hypothesis, while yours needs to be criticized the most. You sit at Viticoola's feet like a dog, as I before, waiting on him to throw you a bone of approval for your idiotic hypothesis, and therefore keep barking away.
Thank you again very much for just another posting, which again tells me much more about you than it does about me. Oh, what modesty you show, and what charm you have. If anyone is in need of following the Delphic advice of self-recognition, then you are. And if my work is such a total failure, then even academics change their minds over it, and partially even made positive comments on it. And if someone is not listening to arguments, then it's you. You are such a naive dunce, my dear. If there are any other possibilities, please share them. What is funny to me is that Lauer worked on a beach book about the Carolina Banks, while I'm working on the formation of the Carolina Banks themselves. And his associates are working on the formation of the Carolina Bays, which they assess have been from 800 BC impact, cannot be from anything else, say another impact, while they're apparently oblivious to the tsunami sequence and deposits in the Carolinas.
In the meantime, NASA is claiming no impacts happened at all, and too many ex-archaeologists have claimed that native oral histories are just myths. And all in all, I'd rather be in Hollywood, Saxony, or the Aegean.
In anthropology, the concept of myth is used in reference to the stories that a group tells about themselves, and to the world generally with supernatural elements to them. The most likely interpretation can be found when looking up what other authors wrote at the same time about similar topics, i.e. history in our case. There we find that all ancient Nerds of Pine Hill authors wrote of a past in this dimension, although they were wrong, as we moderns know. In anthropology, the concept of myth is used in reference to the stories that a group tells about themselves and to the world, generally with supernatural elements to them.
Often used in reference to indigenous groups, the term is also used in reference to the stories that a given ethnic group tells about its origins in a manner that does not necessarily involve supernatural elements.
If only possible, I would follow you. But how do we know what happened and what occurred at the initial event? Do you think that Herodotus invented the age of far out, 11,000 years ago, in order to make only a symbolic or moral statement? Or do you think that Herodotus really believed in what he wrote? We have exarchaeological data from Elven and the Valley Nations that strongly indicate impact megatsunami in the Atlantic Ocean. These people were not modern-day nerds of Pine Hill or Turks. Herodotus was a very good historian, in my opinion. And you parted in peace, and now you pretend that it allegedly was all a hoax? All your friendliness, allegedly only sarcasm? That you were of an inimical mind and deceiver right from the very beginning? Your words are not sarcasm, but fit perfectly to your mindset. You only pretend now that it was sarcasm. On the level of certain translations, there were clearly irony and sarcasm, but not on the level of the original text. On the whole, it is obvious for sensible persons as annoying bullshit, immune against all criticism, and where criticism is not possible, there is no academic approach anymore but dogmatism. You sooner are a kind of sophist, an unsophisticated one. You believe yourself very wise and above your Atlantology colleagues, and you are very little and insignificant fool. I cannot remember that Socrates ever tried to convince anybody by repeating time and again the same nonsense. Somebody who is experiencing one insult after the other cannot be a wise person. In reference to this, I cannot remember that Socrates ever tried to convince anyone by repeating time and again the same nonsense. One thing is sure, someone who is expressing one insult after the other cannot be a wise person. Just for starters, you making me out as a white supremacist is not an insult? But never mind me and our insults, as you constantly demeanor your Atlantology colleagues, especially more so than to totally reject your hypothesis. You degrade those academics whom you have sought to review your ideas after they refuse to accept any of it and have politely explained it to you. But I suppose with all that you make yourself out as a stranger when it comes to insulting others. No one will argue with you when it comes to admitting that Sooner has a sharp tongue when it comes to insulting others. What they argue is the type of tongue, as we can say, truthfully, that Sooner has a forked tongue, as the natives say. And we argue that you speak nonsense and conceit all day long. If you think yourself a great contributor to human knowledge, not for you to sigh. Now, Sooner, as far as Socrates not convincing others, as you say, I do with you, it appears you as repetitive as nonsense. Let me offer the opinion of someone who is very close to Socrates. As a witness does affirm what you deny, foibles that just how Socrates repeatedly went about trying to convince idiots like yourself with their nonsense. As a wise Cratican physician once told us about, the truth of healing to first and foremost cure or do the work. You, Sooner, are a fool.